they're dissecting their own reactions, their motivations, the dynamics of the group.
So they're turning the lens on themselves.
Yeah, they're looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that's when the real deep dive happens.
Interesting.
It's not about James Holzier anymore.
So what is it about?
It's about us. It's about the way we create and consume stories online, the blurred lines between entertainment and exploitation, the weird fascination we have with fame and infamy.
It's like they've stumbled onto this really complicated puzzle and they're trying to put the pieces together.
It is a puzzle.
And it's a reminder that the internet is not just this abstract thing.
Right.
It's a real place with real consequences.
Absolutely. And in the case of James Holzier, this attention played a huge role in his story.
So what happened to him in the end?
That's the mystery, isn't it?
It is. Tell me.
The thread eventually dies down, leaving behind more questions than answers.
Did he get what he wanted? Did he become famous?
Some people think he was overwhelmed by the attention and retreated from public life.
Okay.
Others think he just moved on to another platform,
Right.
still creating his persona.
So we don't really know what happened.
We don't. It's kind of fitting, though, isn't it?
I guess so.
He becomes this ghost in the machine.
Yeah.
This cautionary tale about internet fame and the impact of our actions online.
It's a powerful story, even if we don't know the ending.
It is. It reminds us that the line between reality and fantasy is really thin, especially online.
And that the pursuit of fame can be dangerous.
And as we navigate this constantly changing online world, we need to remember that we're not just watching.
We're all part of it.
We're all shaping the story.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive for today.
It does.
Wow. I learned a lot more than I expected.
Me too.
It just goes to show that even the strangest corners of the internet can teach us something about ourselves.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're continuing our deep dive into this whole James Holzier thing.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about that Reddit thread from back in 2012, right?
Right.
The one that kind of exposed all those stories he was telling about dating all those A-list celebrities.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't
Well,
it?
it turns out it wasn't just those stories. Seems like this guy was really pulling strings trying to make himself famous back in the early 2000s.
Really?
Yeah, like trying to hack the system before hacking was even a thing, you know?
Wow.
Especially with those celebrity ranking lists back then.
You mean like mentcelebs.com and beststuff.com?
Exactly. Hard to believe he managed to top those lists.
Yeah, you're right. How do you do that?
It's not like he had all these huge roles or anything, right?
I mean,
You look at his filmography, Dreams in the Attic, that lost film with Shelley Duvall.
oh yeah, I remember that one.
Then there's Willy the Hitman,
Which is another pretty obscure title.
to say the least.
Yeah. And don't forget that little appearance on Cousin Skeeter.
Huh. Yeah, I guess that's more of a fun fact than a claim to fame.
Definitely.
But still, I mean, he's up there with the likes of Tom Felton during Harry Potter mania.
Right. And even beaten Zac Efron at the peak of High School Musical.
Yeah. How does someone with such a small filmography get that kind of online attention? Especially back then.
Yeah, it's almost like he was way ahead of his time or something.
Like some kind of internet pioneer?
Yeah,
But like, what was he doing? Was it some kind of early bot manipulation?
that's possible.
Or maybe a super dedicated but kind of delusional fan base?
I mean, both are definitely possibilities, right?
True.
I mean, back in the mid-2000s, the internet was still kind of the Wild West.
Yeah, no rules.
Exactly, and a lot of those ranking sites were pretty basic back then.
So someone could have easily programmed a bot to just keep visiting his profile.
And that would bump up his ranking.
Artificially.
Right.
Or
Maybe.
you could have like this small but super devoted group of fans.
Remember those hitmen from those forum posts we found?
Right. Like they all got together and decided to vote for him nonstop.
Like an early version of those K-pop fans?
Oh yeah, the ones who get their favorite bands to the top of the Billboard chart.
Exactly, except this was way before K-pop even existed.
And without social media to rally everyone.
Yeah, this was before Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Right. So how did he do it?
That's the big question, isn't it?
So if he wasn't using social media, how is he doing all this? Was it all through those fan sites?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
How so?
Remember all those testimonials we dug up?
Oh yeah, on those old Breathe Heavy forums and those Yahoo Answers threads.
It's like there was this coordinated effort to build hype around him.
Right. Like it wasn't just about those rankings.
No, it was bigger than that.
He had tons of fan sites, dedicated forums.
Even that JamesHolzier.com website.
Oh yeah. Which is oddly absent from the Wayback Machine.
Like someone went through a lot of trouble to wipe his internet history clean.
Yeah, adds another layer to this whole mystery.
Sure.
So we've got fake fan testimonials, missing websites, and an online presence that rivals huge A-listers. What's the point of all this? Was it just a prank?
Maybe he was just trying to mess with the system.
You know, poke fun at how ridiculous online fame is.
Kind of like an early internet troll.
Yeah, using satire to make a statement about internet culture.
That's pretty ahead of its time when you think about it.
Totally. But there's also that possibility that he was just desperate for fame.
You know, using any means necessary to get there.
Right, like those fake paparazzi photos.
And all those exaggerated connections to films like The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah, those were ridiculous. Saying he dated Scarlett Johansson.
Anne Hathaway.
Lindsay Fonseca.
It was all so calculated.
And let's not forget, Dreams in the Attic.
Oh yeah, that film that was supposed to star Shelley Duvall.
Right, the one that was supposedly rejected by Disney Channel and never aired.
Which basically makes it lost media now.
Another layer of intrigue to this whole thing.
And then there's Willy the Hitman.
Which does exist, but good luck finding a copy.
Right. It's like 2 of his projects just vanished from the internet. Totally. Crazy, right? Absolutely. Okay, so let's try to piece together a timeline here.
Yep.
Like, when did all this start? When did he first pop up on the radar?
Well, I dug into those mencelebs.com archives.
Oh, yeah.
Found some interesting stuff.
What'd you find?
Looks like Holzier first appeared on their top 25 list back in April of 2004.
Okay.
He debuted at number 12.
Wait, hold on. At that point, he was basically a nobody, right?
Pretty much.
Dreams in the Attic hadn't aired. Willy the Hitman was still under wraps. And Cousin Skeeter was just a tiny blip.
So how does he suddenly appear on this list ranked higher than some established names?
I know, it's like he just materialized out of thin air.
Right.
What happened next?
Well, in June of that year, Jeremy Sumpter took the number 1 spot.
Makes sense. He was fresh off the success of Peter Pan.
Right. Holzier was trailing behind at that point.
Still pretty high up there, though.
Yeah, then in September, he makes this huge jump to number 4. Wow. Practically breathing down the neck of Kyle Lyfat.
Who was a much bigger name at the time.
Yeah, it's like someone just flipped a switch.
But then the very next week,
Yeah.
he disappears from the top 25 completely.
What? He just vanishes.
Gone.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like he briefly stepped off the stage only to reappear in October.
This time at number 2.
Uh-huh.
This is getting weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
So I've got these sudden changes in his ranking, these weird disappearances and reappearances. What's the explanation?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's one we'll keep exploring as we dig deeper into this whole James Holzier thing.
I'm hooked. Me too.
Okay, so those crazy ups and downs in his Mencelebs ranking.
Yeah.
What do you think that tells us?
Well, for one, it makes you wonder if his rise to the top was even real, you know?
Right. If it was all planned, like with bots or a super dedicated fan base.
You'd think his ranking would have gone up more smoothly, right?
Yeah, not all those sudden drops and climbs.
It's like someone was messing with the controls.
Makes you think about that ARG theory, doesn't it?
The idea that this whole thing was part of some elaborate game.
Right. What if those ranking changes were intentional?
Like clues for people to figure out.
Exactly.
Whoa. So you're saying those weird movements on mencelebs.com?
They could have been messages hidden in plain sight.
Wow. That's some next level internet mystery stuff.
It's definitely a possibility, right?
Yeah. And think about the internet back then.
Early 2000s.
People were obsessed with those early online games.
Looking for something different, you know.
And ARGs were perfect for that.
Blurring the lines between what's real and what's not.
So Holzier could have been like a pioneer.
Using those ranking sites as a platform for his ARG.
Messing with the whole idea of online fame.
Exactly.
And remember all those fan sites and testimonials.
Yeah.
What if those were part of the game too?
Full of clues and secret messages.
Okay, I'm totally hooked now, but let's say this is an ARG.
Okay.
What was the point?
Yeah, what was he trying to say?
That's the big mystery, isn't it?
It really is.
Was it about how fake fame is?
How easy it is to manipulate people online.
Maybe it was a social experiment.
To see how far people would go to believe in a lie.
Like he was making a statement about the internet.
About how it was starting to change our reality.
It's kind of prophetic when you think about it.
Yeah, with all the influencers and online personas we have today.
It's like he saw it coming.
Maybe he did.
But hold on, let's not get too carried away with the ARG theory.
True.
Maybe it wasn't some big social statement.
Or a game.
Maybe it was just good old-fashioned ego.
Right, maybe he just wanted to be famous.
Remember all those wild stories he told?
Oh yeah, about dating Scarlett Johansson.
Anne Hathaway.
Lindsay Fonseca.
Like he was trying to make himself seem bigger than life.
Connected to all those Hollywood A-listers.
Even if it meant lying.
And don't forget, he was at the top of mencelebs.com for a while.
Yeah.
If it was just bots, wouldn't the website have noticed?
You'd think so, right?
So maybe there were real people involved.
Fans who actually believed in him.
And helped him stay at the top.
Those hitmen.
Maybe they were the key to his online success.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
It is.
On one hand, you have this potential manipulation.
Yeah, building a fake identity.
And on the other hand, you have real fans.
Who genuinely liked him.
Drawn to the image he created.
It makes you wonder what they thought when the truth came out.
Right, do they feel betrayed?
Or did they still believe in him?
That's a tough question.
It really is.
I guess it all comes down to this.
What happens when we find out the truth?
When the curtain is pulled back?
And the person behind the online persona is revealed?
Does it change how we see them?
Do we still believe in the story?
It makes you think about how much we trust what we see online.
Absolutely.
And it brings us back to those lost films.
Dreams in the Attic.
And Willy the Hitman.
What if we could watch those films today?
Would they show us the real James Holzier?
The person behind the mask.
Or would they just be more of the same?
More lies. More fabrications.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
It is.
Those lost films could hold the key to understanding this whole thing.
But for now, they're still out there somewhere.
Adding another layer of mystery to this already strange story.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go back to that Men Celebs timeline.
Okay.
We left off with Holzier disappearing, then reappearing on the list.
Back in late 2004.
Right, so what happened after that?
Well, by January 2005, he was in a three-way battle for the top spot.
Oh, yeah. With who?
Gerard Butler.
Okay.
And Tom Felton.
Wow, those are some big names.
Yeah, like he was playing in the major leagues.
Even though he was still pretty unknown.
Exactly.
So what happened next? Did he win?
Well, this is where things get even crazier.
Oh, boy.
In November 2005, Holzier finally reached number 1.
He did it. He finally took the crown.
But here's the thing.
Why?
If he was using bots or had all those dedicated fans,
Yeah.
wouldn't he have gotten there sooner?
That's a good point. Doesn't really make sense.
Well, it's almost like he was waiting.
Like he was enjoying the climb to the top. Maybe it was all part of the plan.
The ARG.
Right. He had to build suspense.
Make people wait for his victory.
Clever.
But his time at the top didn't last long.
Oh, no, what happened?
The very next week, he was dethroned.
By who?
Eddie Guerrero.
Wait, Eddie Guerrero? The wrestler?
The one and only.
Wow, that's a twist I did not see coming.
It makes you wonder about how mencelebs.com worked back then.
Yeah, like was it just about popularity?
Or were there other things going on?
Like maybe someone was manipulating the rankings behind the scenes?
It's hard to say.
It's like we're missing a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
So what happened to Holzier after Eddie Guerrero took over?
Did he just fade away?
Well, with James Holzier, you never know.
That's for sure.
His story is far from over.
This is just the beginning.
Okay, so we left off with Holzier getting knocked off the top spot by a wrestler.
Yeah, Eddie Guerrero.
It's pretty wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do we go from here in the timeline?
Well, Holzier didn't just give up. He actually got back to number 1 on mencelebs.com.
He did. When was that?
January 2008.
Wow. Another comeback. But how long did it last this time?
Unfortunately, not very long. By November of that same year, he was down the rankings again.
Really?
Yeah, a new group of actors had taken over guys like Diego Luna.
Yeah, I remember him. It's like a game of musical chairs.
Exactly.
All these celebrities fighting for that top spot. So was Holzier just a one-hit wonder or what?
Well, this is James Holzier we're talking about, so of course there's another twist.
Of course there is.
In January 2009, he made one final comeback.
No way. He got back to number 1.
He did. He reclaimed the top spot on mencelebs.com.
Wow, that's incredible. But wait, didn't mencelebs.com stop doing their top 25 list that same year?
They did in 2009.
So he ended his run at the top, huh?
He went out as the champion.
It's kind of poetic in a way.
Yeah.
Like he conquered this whole online popularity contest.
And then disappeared just as the game ended.
It adds to the mystery.
It really does.
So what happened to James Holzier after mencelebs.com shut down?
That's the big question, isn't it?
We know that Reddit thread came out in 2012.
The one that exposed all his lies.
Do you think that's what made him disappear from the internet?
It's hard to say for sure, but a lot of his fan sites went offline around that time.
Yeah, and all those glowing testimonials, they just vanished.
Like someone scrubbed his entire online presence.
It's crazy.
Why do you think he did that?
Maybe shame, maybe embarrassment, or maybe he was just tired of the whole charade.
Maybe the pressure of keeping up this fake persona got to be too much.
Yeah, especially since this is before social media was everywhere.
Right, maybe he just wanted to live a normal life.
Or maybe it was the grand finale of his ARG.
The final act.